Hello humans, it is I, Mr. Bell, with a clay kit. These are tools that we're going to use for making our clay projects. For today, really all I want you to do is kind of round up these materials, and some of them do require a little bit of making. First, you're going to need a sponge. Really any kind of sponge will work. This is just one of those regular old dishwashing sponges. But this is going to be used for moistening your clay, and also this is super handy when it is time for clean up. Remember that clay can get very, very messy. You don't want that clay dust after it, like if you have a smear of clay, it'll dry and then it'll become dust, and it's a big bummer to have in your house. So do clean up after you are working every single time. So sponge. Next thing you're going to need is a regular old fork. This is very handy for a bunch of different sculpting stuff, and it is really good for scoring clay. That's putting those scratches on parts of clay that you're going to connect to create the kind of the surface area, to expand the surface area of that clay. So scrapey clay, you need a fork. You also will need a spoon. This is good for kind of acting like a tool that is called a rib. This is really good for smoothing clay. It's pretty good for digging clay. Honestly, when I'm working with clay, I use spoons all the time, not even just like makeshift stuff. I think a tool is a very valuable tool when working with clay. So you will also need, you don't super need this, but this is going to be a really handy tool. This is just an old, like a travel card that doesn't have any money on it anymore, but it is super valuable, and this is something that you do kind of need to make. Excuse me. So for this, I have this card. Again, don't use a card that has any value to it. You need to find something that is pretty much trash. And I kept this around pretty much for this exact purpose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off just the tip of it, and I'm going to make it a curved edge. Kind of like so. You want this to be a smooth cut. It doesn't have to be perfectly round or anything, but this is going to be for another type of a tool called a rib tool, and it's good for cutting up clay, and it's really good for smoothing out bits of clay. So a credit card rib. You will also need a paper clip. This is also one of the most handy tools. I use this when I'm working with clay all the time. All you have to do, straighten this bad boy out. Bam. Bam. I like to leave the edge of this like this. This way you can make what's called a loop tool. And this is really good for like digging out crevices in stuff, or like digging out hollow parts of the clay sculptures that we're going to make. So real simple to make. You're going to use this edge for scoring and maybe making some detail stuff. And then this works really well as a loop tool. If you're familiar with ceramics, you know what a loop tool is. If you don't, that's okay. We are going to need it. This is going to be one of the most valuable tools. This and the spoon are probably going to be your most valuable tools. I also, in my kit, have a larger bit of wire. I use this for really, like, if I really want to dig in deep to that clay. I use this to kind of score inside. Made a little handle out of a pen cap. You don't have to have a pen cap, but I like it being there because it helps me rotate this when I'm working with it. It doesn't have to be this long. It really only needs to be about this long, probably. I made mine a little longer just so I can use it a little easier. So a thicker bit of wire, kind of you're going to use this real similarly to the way that you use the loop tool here that we made out of the paper clip. And then the last thing I have is a ruler. Not super important, this ruler, but it's very good for measuring. And I use these as long as your ruler is pretty stiff, you can use it for beating clay kind of down and smoothing stuff out. Kind of using this along the lines of a rib tool. The only other tool that we really would be using in like a regular classroom is like a piano wire. It's used for like cutting clay. I don't think we super need that for this because we all have individual clay and you can just grab a chunk if you want. So that is the kit that I want you to make today. This is going to be an assignment. I want you to take a photograph of this and we will be turning it in later.